a mission is not just a smart tagline on a website if it's done right? It's something where you're building your culture around it, and you're empowering your people to come up with ideas, and you're making your decision makers make decisions under this mission. So if you manage to get that right from the beginning, you can really go out and build a sustainable business across all parameters.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Good for Profit. I'm your host, Mo, and today's guest with us is Jessie Frahm. Jessie is founder at Planet 1.5. She is the founder of a boutique consultancy that helps businesses become more greener, more sustainable, whether they're large or small. And she does have a lot of experience from branding and marketing background and knows exactly how to help businesses turn the business around from a sustainability perspective, but then also shout about it and use it to their advantage. So the conversation was pretty interesting. We talked a bit about branding and we talked a bit about sustainability and some of the awesome stuff that she's working on. Without further ado, here is the conversation. All right. Hello and welcome. Jessie, very happy to have you here with us today on the podcast. I want to start with saving the planet one business at a time. Is that right?
That's very, very true. Yeah, we're trying hard to do that.
Absolutely love the tagline. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Can you, I know I'm diving right into it, but I think that's just the best way to do it. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about that mission, kind of what brought that mission about before we dive into talking about Planet 1.5?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. As I see, there's really three players that needs to get their stuff together and contributing if we are to succeed in terms of sustainability and specifically climate change. So every individual in the person has a role, and their behavior influence what comes out and what happens in society. Obviously, corporate businesses and especially big businesses play a mega role because they're emitting all sorts of stuff when they're producing whatever we need for us. And then obviously policymakers, they're kind of setting the direction for where we're going. So you can't do it all. And my kind of experience are in working with businesses. So we just kind of really focused in on helping businesses do better in a landscape where it's really, really complex, especially because a lot of businesses, they are built around delivering profit for shareholders. So going in and actually rewiring is quite challenging. So that's what we help them do.
That's amazing. And is this like a personal mission? Is this something that you personally feel really strongly about?
Yeah, I'm mega passionate about it. I'm to an extent where I'm having obviously the paid version where people give us money to come out and help them. But alongside that, I'm just having passion projects. So I've started a thought leader group for, I'm originally from Denmark. So a lot of the big businesses that are operating under the Denmark as country, so Novo Nordisk, Ørsted, Danish Crown, a lot of those have invited leaders into a quarterly thought leader group, but we're talking about how we can solve these things. And it's just, I don't get paid for that, but it's fantastic.
Sure. Yeah. And you feel strongly about it, and so you're even happy to do that part pro bono kind of thing. So
that's I mean, I learn something, right? I get that in return.
But what is it about the Scandinavian part of the world that makes you so good at just caring for the world? Because it's definitely a bit of a theme, right?
There definitely are a little bit of a theme out there. I don't know if we live a little bit closer to nature. I really genuinely feel we do compared to I spent 10 years in the UK, but my upbringing in Denmark, we're going fishing with my dad, and we would go to Norway and just go for big hiking trips and that kind of thing. And I can see that in my friends too. And yeah, there is just something about that.
Of course. It's incredible. And this is what led you to go into Planet 1.5.
Yes and no. I worked 10 years in marketing, and I just kind of felt really personally responsible for pouring fuel on this endless consumption machine.
I see. Interesting. Yeah. Tell us more about that. That's fascinating. So, because obviously your background's in branding as well, right? You've got quite a strong background there.
Yeah, so I spent 10 years, came over as a graduate, as you do, to London with all the hopes and aspirations. And then
hoping to find green spaces and finding not that many.
You didn't really know what you hoped for that time. At least I
Sure.
didn't. I was just like, I wanted to do something creative, and
Yeah.
it was really fun, and I still find that world fascinating. And I find the role of communication to be fascinating, but also really important when it comes to sustainability. So yeah, I work for some of the big London agencies in project management and helped to just sell brands products and get consumption going.
Wow. And it didn't make you feel that great. I mean, I'm assuming that the lifestyle was good, but what you were doing just made you feel something on the inside that kind of wasn't enough. It wasn't. You felt like you're not doing the right thing in a way.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I spoke to many of my colleagues and I have good friends from that time, and a lot of them still say, yeah, I'm in marketing. It's probably not what I want to keep doing because I kind of feel it's not the right. But I do think there's a role in communication and saying, could we not use that skill because it is a skill to go out and communicate change and also motivate people to go come on board on this mission because there's a lot of punching around and like pointing fingers at each other and you're the responsible, we are not, and like why are you not doing this? And I think we can bridge that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's a really nice and healthy way to think about it as well. Kind of being the mediator in some way, because I think deep down everybody wants the planet to do well and wants next generations to be able to live in a thriving environment, right? I mean, a lot of people who run those businesses also have their own kids, and they want to see their own grandkids grow up in lovely environments. So deep down, we all care about the same thing ultimately, right?
Yeah, 100%. We might disagree on how we get there sometimes, and some people might be more willing to give up things than others. And yeah, but I think deep down people care. And I can see it, especially when we speak to senior legal leaders. And one of our pain points, if you will, is what legacy do you want to leave behind? And that exactly is something that is precious to people in more senior positions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Planet 1.5, I'm curious who came up with the name. It could have been Planet 2.0, but you've
I
chosen Planet
could.
1.5, and I'm sure there's a reason behind that.
There definitely is. So the 1.5 is obviously a reference to the Paris Agreement, and it is the limitation to temperature increase that we're trying to kind of prevent going above. We're currently at 1.3, so we only have like a little bit of wiggle room, hence why it's so urgent. Um, and then you gotta be creative and come up with something people remember, and it also gotta have an available URL. So I one day randomly typed down
All the
Planet
criteria.
1.5, and I can't believe it was actually available, but I just
Wow.
went ahead and bought it. Yeah.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think it would have too much of a tie into the Paris Agreement until I sort of realized. Because I thought maybe you were going for like kind of Planet 2.0, sort of like a version 2 of the planet kind of thing. But
Yeah.
it's a sort of a play on words, isn't it, with that? So yeah, that's
It's
brilliant.
a yeah, it's just a play on what it is that we're trying to achieve. Well, to be fair, in the Paris Agreement, it's 2 degrees, but it's strongly with an encouragement on 1.5 because the consequences between if we go up to 2 degrees versus 1.5, the whole knock-on effect on the planet is just like don't want to think about it. So
And that's only
that's what
what
we're
we
trying to do.
understand as well. I mean, there's many things we don't
Yeah.
understand, which could, yeah, it could potentially be a lot worse. Um, Very interesting. And tell us more about Planet 1.5. So, what is it that you do in a nutshell when you work with businesses?
Yes, we are trying to help organizations understand the value across social, environmental, and economic parameters. So, and then we're trying to establish good governance processes. And it's really interesting. A lot of people are talking about, oh, we need to reach these carbon goals and we need to install all of these things. And really, when people then read into what that means, it's quite hard to understand. So, I think to get around the masses, the goal really is to get people thinking and to get them starting to build processes internally that help reach these goals and build future-proof companies. Now we are using what's called GRI reporting. It's a little bit technical. It's the only UN endorsed reporting framework. So you can say, oh, you're ending up with a dusty report. It's not a dusty report because first of all, communication is really important in this, but it's the thing that go around it, right? But it's like when we are analyzing what you're doing and what you're not doing and what you should be doing, and then we're building processes, responsibilities, empowering people, and then we help roll it out, and then we go in year after year and kind of say, what did you do and what didn't you do, and how
Evaluate in
can
a
we
way
continue this
to,
process?
sure.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. And what
Yeah.
does TRI stand for again?
The Global Reporting Initiative.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. It's a lot of disclosures. It's a bit like being a
Of
lawyer, so
course.
then you read up and think, yeah.
Of course. You have to understand all the little acronyms. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And so, do you work with businesses of all sizes, all organization sizes, or do you tend to focus a little bit more on kind of enterprise level?
We'll say medium-sized businesses is kind of good. Targeting like the 50 mil turnover plus minus kind of. So it's not the two-man band startup. And yeah, but they're bigger. But we are not that big, right? So we got to have the manpower to go out and actually be able to help as well.
No, of course, of course. Curious to understand a bit more about that. Actually, have you thought about going into the kind of smaller businesses realm, the world of startups, to help them? Could argue maybe get things right from the start.
It's interesting. We're doing it a little bit. I'm actually running a workshop on Tuesday with a client that's starting a business around. She's getting venture capital funds together to help invest in startups that are nurturing a green agenda, and they need a full green agenda built into that kind of studio environment. And I think that's really, really cool. And we're helping them build the just build the structure and also build the communication around it so that they nail that before they even roll it out.
That
So
is
yes
very
and no.
cool. Yeah, no, well, absolutely.
It's really
So
cool. Yeah.
yeah, that's really, really awesome. Are they in stealth mode, or do you want to give them a quick shout out in case listeners want to go and check them out?
Oh, I would love to. They're just kind of
Still in
still,
stealth.
all the
Yeah.
paperwork.
No, of
Yeah.
course, totally understandable. Of course,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll hear about them soon enough. Anyway, maybe we'll have them here on the podcast
Yeah,
as well.
definitely.
So.
I'll send them your way.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's incredible. And yeah, because it's a bit of a tricky one, isn't it, with startups? Because in one hand, there's so much to think about and so many things, fires to put out, growth opportunities to try. You need to raise funding. You need to figure out your sales cycle and do the marketing stuff. And it's really building a ship from scratch, right? And get everything going. And then to on top of that, try and add in the sustainability angle. So like, if you're a kind of a mission-driven startup already that's building something around something sustainable or impact-driven, then it's kind of a little bit easier because sort of it's built into it. But if you're doing something that's a bit more general and you are still trying to be sustainable in some way, from my experience speaking with founders, that can sometimes be quite hard to manage because there's so much going on already, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is really, but you're onto something, right? Because if you can go in and you can help them build a mission, and a mission is not just a smart tagline on a website if it's done right, right? It's something where you're building your culture around it, and you're empowering your people to come up with ideas, and you're making your decision makers make decisions under this mission. So if you manage to get that right from the beginning, you can really go out and build a sustainable business across all parameters. And we are actually having a client right this moment where I ended up challenging them and saying, I love you to bits, but your mission statement is literally spelling out we're working for shareholders. And having a shareholder driven philosophy is short term, right? Because you're having people that has invested in you that want the kickback now, but building a sustainable organization is a long-term strategy. So therefore, we have actually challenged them and said, we are having a hard time writing a really substantial report where you show that you're serious if you keep going down this line. So that's now going all the way up, and God knows where we'll end. But it's an interesting conversation.
Right. Yeah. No, I can imagine that would be very, very interesting. Are they shifting their mission then? Do you think is that something that's going to be an outcome here? Because that can be quite a tough thing to do,
Positive.
right?
It's
Yeah.
a really cheeky thing to go in, and you're really pushing to the DNA of a business, of a business when you're going in and talking about their mission, right? But I don't see why they shouldn't do it. I think they haven't had good marketing people tickle around what they did in the first place, and we could maybe help them do that as an opportunity for us, but really an opportunity for them. And they have done so much work in the past that they should really be taken serious as well. So I don't see why not.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that'll be quite a key thing if that's the sort of thing that you can actually offer with startups, and with companies that you've worked with. So sort of like in the medium-sized businesses and so on and so forth. I suppose what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that they come up with as to why they can't implement some of the stuff that you talk about? Maybe it's sort of like a little bit to kind of help people realize maybe that some of the obstacles they have may actually not be that bad of an obstacle, and that maybe there's more that they can do, but they don't realize. Like, do you come across that often, or do you think that, do you feel like most people you work with are kind of pretty on it?
I feel like it's really widespread of.
Okay,
I,
it's a
I
mix of
see
everything,
people.
sure.
It's really a mix, right? Some people are not even that interested, but it's a matter of then finding the people that are interested. In terms of obstacles, I think data is something that's talked a lot about. There's so much information. How do you gather it? So we're talking qualitative and quantitative data, right? So there's a quantitative data in terms of how much power do you use, how many company vehicles do you have, how much of product X do you actually consume, how much go to waste. Those kind of things you can quantify, right? And you can write it in, and then you can say next year we slashed it, or we changed power supply, or whatever we did, right? So that's kind of easy. Then there's all the qualitative, and that's kind of the expectations from both from your suppliers, but also from your clients around what it is that you do from as a business, and how do you evaluate social value, like that you go out and you create opportunities in your local environment by starting projects that are in alignment with your business, but it's not necessarily a direct kickback. So
Right. Interesting.
how do you
How do you
measure that,
quantify
right?
that? Yeah, yeah. So you can show you're making
Yeah,
an impact, right?
yeah.
That's
So
fascinating.
that's a
Yeah.
challenge. Yeah.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And it's really interesting because trying to measure impact can be a very tough thing to do because, you can sometimes end up going down a bit of a utilitarian hole of when trying to do that. And it can sometimes get a little bit brutal when you really try to quantify it like that. Um, but it's a challenge, but it's definitely also very interesting. It's quite cool to try and like understand the genuine impact that you're making in the world. Do you tend to use things like quality adjusted life years and measurements like that to try and quantify those things, or there's sort of other
We
go-to?
use, we use a calculator that we are partnering up with, and then a lot
Amazing.
of Excel spreadsheets, and a lot
I
of
can imagine.
we have a portal where we are sharing data,
Yeah,
and
of
like
course.
so it becomes a little bit of a beast with stuff everywhere. I think one of the big hurdles is because we do it in year one, right? But we have to do it all over again next year. So kind of build a system where it doesn't become tedious. And I actually say it's a big collaboration with finance often, because they sit on a lot of that data. So depending on what systems they are set up with in finance, that might actually impact how we go in and do it. So Power BI, some businesses uses Power BI to start creating these simulations visually, but there's other kind of ways of doing it too.
Awesome. And so your engagement tends to be, roughly speaking, on average, let's say, how long with the business? Obviously, you start year one and you help them kind of figure out what's going on and set processes up and so on and so forth. But then it's a matter of making sure they keep going and the evaluation stage and so on, right? How are you finding that, first of all, so far? And secondly, how long do you think it takes to get that cultural shift internally within a big organization like a big company, like one of the ones you work with?
Yeah. Um, so it tends to be really intense in year one, because it's running around and figuring everything out and onboarding people and getting them to understand what it even is and why we're doing it, and getting the buy-in and finding the data and what, like, there's so much. But taking the learnings from that, they really quickly understand that we then need to do next year. So I would say we're only like at 50% capacity in the coming years, and maybe even less and less and less, where we're going in and it becomes a validation of what they did, and maybe help them set new targets. And maybe if they haven't submitted themselves to, are you familiar with science-based targets? So if they haven't done that process yet, then it could
Listeners may not be though, so it might be worth just quickly explaining a little bit more about it.
explaining it. Okay, so science-based target is an initiative where it tends to be, if you're taking at least emissions really seriously, you go in and you commit to a target, and then you do your reporting and that kind of thing. And it's just kind of a really public way of announcing that we're working towards this, and then you'll be named and shamed if you don't.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Taking responsibility up front, essentially.
yeah, exactly. But there's something about it's accountability, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you never do it in round one when you're running around and figuring and all the firefighting. But when you're kind of in a place and there's a bit of a system, I think it's a good opportunity to actually make that commitment. And sometimes you don't know how to reach a target, and it doesn't have to be on carbon. It could also just be on a social target. But then go out and set something you don't know how to solve, and just throw all your best resources at it, and sometimes you just come up with an amazing solution, and that later becomes a competitive advantage, right? So there's all of these kind of things around it.
Of course, of course. And obviously your work with branding and positioning and marketing, that background must really help you massively with this, because the communication around those things is really important, and that can actually also be a true unfair advantage to a lot of brands out there nowadays.
Yeah, totally. It's a matter of actually understanding what is a good mission, because I see a lot of shit mission statements out there. Sorry, but like
It is
if you
say
don't
it as it is.
understand how
It's
to
okay.
craft it,
Say it as it is.
it's
Yeah,
say it as it is. If you don't
that's
understand
brilliant.
what
Yeah.
is a good mission statement, how does it tie into these things, it's actually hard to build it. And then I want it to be easy to talk about, because businesses that go through these efforts, they need to be celebrated and inspire other businesses. So if we can help them figure what they do and then help create awesome communication pieces around it where they're not being called out for greenwashing, because that's a whole topic on its own, then I think we're creating a push.
Yeah, absolutely. What role do you see like community playing in this? And when I say community, I mean, community of like-minded businesses, community of like-minded entrepreneurs, or community of like-minded consultants. What role do you see that playing within this whole piece?
It's a massive thing that needs to be utilized more. And it's actually interesting you mention it, because yesterday we hosted, and again, it was like a freebie, a intimate thought leader discussion. We're starting to run with these thought leader discussions as a thing for females leaders, or female like thought leaders around sustainability in the construction industry. So very
No
niche.
way. Very interesting.
Yeah, we did
Wow.
that. It was
Yeah.
so good.
Wow.
Like, and it was, somewhere from a bit of a bigger like main contractor. Others were from like a small supplier in God knows where. But they just all realized that, we all know these things, and it was like, oh, but we use this tool, or I went on this course, or we're actually investing in this social project over here, and everybody was sitting there taking notes. And I think you can spend an hour and a half like that with peers and take your competitive issues and just take them aside for a little
Yeah.
bit, right? And
Yeah.
then see how can we actually help each other. I think
Wow.
that has value.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. That's amazing you're actually doing that. Is that something that you're hoping to do in more areas and kind of like with different niches, I'd imagine, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. I'm actually having an employee working for Planet 1.5 just focused on setting these ones up, because, I mean, we want to give that value. Maybe work comes out of it too, as we build relationships. But not only do we want to feature ourselves, we're actually looking to, as soon as we find businesses that are sustainable and has the credentials and kind of has built a structure around them, we want to feature them and use our brand and our platform to give them a voice out to their community. So yeah, I think that could be a really strong kind of position, but it's something we're building up to.
Yeah, yeah, of course. No, it's incredible. I mean, you haven't been that long. I suppose you've been in the making for many years, but you haven't been sort of that long aggressively kind of going for it. And it seems like you're doing quite a
No,
lot
it's about a
already, which
year
is
that we've been
which is
going.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, it's fantastic.
yeah, how's that been for you, the journey, just like generally speaking, the ups and downs of starting something like this?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, everything from do I dare hiring this person? Cash flow
Sure.
to, oh my God, all the things I didn't know. And then you have conversations and you hire another consultant and you ring them up and you have all these kind of, I don't know, you just learn so much in the process. And then you meet all of these fantastic people. And you start also, I think any business that are starting out are kind of defining the business as they do it a little bit. And I really found that the value of people around me are so good. And you got to just give people the opportunity to give you something, because it was not my idea with the thought leader groups. It was Jake, my salesperson, right? And he was like, no, we need to do this. And like,
Well,
I
shout
can,
out to
he come
Jake.
from background. Yeah, big shout out to Jake, right? He's absolute genius with this. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I love it, because I was already running the Net Positive group for the big Danish corporations. And he was like, why don't we do that some more? But just structured. I was like, yeah, I like that. Also because it gives value and it's something we really believe in. I don't want to just like, things has to make sense, right? It gotta save that
Absolutely.
planet.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and definitely the point you make around people is very important. I mean, cheeky little plug-in, I suppose, for Key Finds who are sponsoring the podcast. It's all about finding the right people for the right places and kind of helping people work where they feel like they belong there, because that's that feeling of belonging somewhere where you work, that's just going to make you so much more creative and better at problem solving and everything. And then from your side, as someone who's employing someone, it's the same thing for you. You want people around you that are going to really kind of help you just build this thing out and give you incredible ideas. So totally
Yeah,
understand
totally.
where
But
you're coming
also
from there.
completely, and you're retaining people by giving them opportunities to be creative. If you're micromanaging around, I would not want that myself, right? So you can't expect people to want that either.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, of course. That's really interesting. Um, and kind of quickly, just running back to the role of community, because it's a really interesting thing, and I don't know where the world is going in that respect, but I think it's competition is great. Competition is fantastic because competition fuels innovation and it leads to people trying to innovate and disrupt things in different ways. And it's really important to for the overall, for example, price of things to come down for the average consumer who may not be able to afford everything. So competition has a role to play for sure, and I wouldn't say I understand fully the role it has to play in economics. But I know that it has a role to play and an important one to play. But I think something that I feel like there needs to be more of is collaboration and community and sort of between different companies that may have some sort of conflict of interest but can somehow still collaborate together if it's purpose driven or something like that. And I'm always curious as to how that could work in a way that works, without it costing either side anything in a way.
Anything. It can be, depending on the size of the business, it can be massively political. And they are sometimes, there are groups, especially in the fashion industry, you're seeing different groups. So, but they're coming together and solving problems are in the production, so in the value chain, because there will be coloring of cotton, or how do we grow cotton in a more effective way, and all of these kinds of what are we doing to scraps and that kind of thing. Can we utilize that? So some of the problems that they're all having, they're then starting to form groups around,
To
but
work
then they
around
need
together.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But there's on the big scale, there's lots of legal going into it as well, with what can you do and what can't you do, etc. But it makes so much sense, because if we're all having the same, so to speak, challenges, there's no reason to not speed up the process by everybody being a little bit stubborn and trying to figure out themselves. So you're right, get together and find those things. And I think it's a lot. So when it comes to waste materials, if you take construction, whenever you demolish a building, what can you actually use of that afterwards, so it's not just going to landfill? Or how can we reuse plastic product from food packaging? Can we find common ground around that? Or what can we do with the fashion that just ends up in landfill? So really figuring these things out. And then so that's the kind of afterlife, right? And then there's the upstream in the value chain, which I mentioned with the like coloring. It could be in the coffee industry as well, where it's like we all invest in filtering and cleaning the water that was used to clean the beans, pulps of the beans, and that kind of thing, so it doesn't go back into water streams and pollutes and do all of those things, right? So yeah, there's a lot of examples on that.
That's brilliant. That's really awesome. So when you go into a business, it's very much really about figuring out, like from scratch, what are the challenges, what's going on, and that, I'd imagine it's different for each business. But there's the common goal is to be more sustainable and kind of be more green, like genuinely, and trying to make more of a positive impact, and obviously help meet the 1.5 degree rise. So that's kind of the common goal, I'd imagine. But then each business will be very, very different to any other business in terms of what they're dealing with, right? There are some challenges, like you said, are common between all of them, like that. But internally, the way they're structured, the way they're going about things, like it's still going to be quite different as to how you can implement things in different businesses. So that must be quite challenging for you. It's kind of to deal with
It
that in
is
a
really
way.
challenging. It's also challenging. So some businesses has one office somewhere, right? And they make all the decisions. Other businesses, you end up dealing with a subsidiary under a mothership, and then
Oh
the
God.
mothership is all of a sudden in another country,
Oh
and
God.
they're not aware. So it's funny if you're
Yeah.
speaking to like if you speak to people in pharma at the moment. Say you have a German pharma company doing something, or Danish pharma company, and then NHS came out with. It's called Plant Greener, or maybe that's the government one. But they essentially came out and said companies in our supply chain that aren't delivering on our targets by 2027, they're out, right? Because they're so big that they can do it. So if you take the mothership overseas in, let's say, Germany, for argument's sake, and then you
Then you don't
have
have to deal with that
a
anymore.
subsidiary over here dealing with the NHS, then Germany doesn't necessarily think about that. So you have to deal with that over here. But how does that align with their agenda in Germany?
Fascinating, of course. Wow, very
So
interesting.
there's so many of those kind of, then it becomes really complex.
So yeah, no, that must be quite a challenge to deal with, and I'm not going to ask you how you deal with that because that's obviously part of your USP. I'd imagine of going in and figuring that out. But that must be quite a tough challenge to deal with. Um, and this is well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, we could get into sort of global politics here, but I don't think we should, unless of course you really want to. Then we could.
Let's keep it lighthearted.
Let's keep it exactly, precisely. Um, Speaking of governments, though, what role do you think that? I mean, obviously, governments play a huge role. They set the goals, and they say we have to meet certain targets by certain times, and so on and so forth. And effectively, they make the rules, right? That businesses have to function by. Um, but do you think that there's enough in terms of incentives that's being done right now, or do you think that this is an area for improvement?
There's definitely always areas for improvement, right? I think some of
Sure.
the decisions they make are just right up stupid, right? It's like we could go out and we could put so many windmills up in the ocean tomorrow, and then we would start like moving away from renewables. But instead, the British government goes out and said, let's invest more money into nuclear power plants. And it's like, okay, that's all well and good. I don't have a problem with nuclear power plants as such. And I'm not an expert in that field either, by the way. But it takes 10 years to plan them and 10 years to build them. So that's 20 years down the line. And if we're in 2022, then we're in 2042 before they're even there. And then it takes them another 10 years to break even, right? And then we're really screwed because we need to reduce our emissions with 45% by 2030. Sorry, that's a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
So that's just a straight up stupid decision. I do think the government has a massive part to play in it. And in some respects, they're doing well. They're asking, after COP26, they started asking all financial institutions to do reporting. And again, it's not that document, but it's to prove that their investments are being invested into green businesses. And that's really important because where money flows, right, that's kind of where things grow, right? So I think that's an important one. There's also, if you have more than 500 people in an organization, you're again forced to go in and do reporting. And again, that forces people to think and start installing the processes. And what happens then are, if you're having a big organization or you're looking for capital investments, then all of a sudden you need to prove upwards that you're worth investing into. So you can quite quickly see how this ripples down. And that's when a lot of the clients we speak to, they will actually be caught in this, where it's like, well, we will not be a supplier for very long unless we actually start acting on this now. So that's really why you might not be under legislations today, but if you're looking to sell to someone or get investments, it's just so important to prove this. And that goes back to startups as well. Just prove that you have this on your radar because you're going to be so much more attractive to put money into.
Right, absolutely, absolutely, and it's very similar actually with, for example, subsidies for carbon capture and things like that. So yeah, no, absolutely, kind of chucking the money in and creating the incentive there is very important. Going back to the point on nuclear very quickly, I think that there are now some technologies that can help build ones a lot much faster than that, or at least I think there are newer power plants that can be done a little bit quicker. At least I seem to remember kind of reading about it somewhere.
Yeah, there might be. I said I'm not a specialist on it. I just know that it's really criticized.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, traditional nuclear power plants, like the really old ones, obviously they're the ones that people kind of tend to hear about the most, and they can cause a lot of problems. But there are definitely newer ones out there, though. Um, I think it's a tough one with nuclear, and I'm only touching on this just because it's an interesting topic. I think it's being debated quite a lot, but it's a tough one with nuclear because in a way, yes, you are kind of chucking the problem to just a few years down the line instead of dealing with it right now. But at the same time, do we have the capacity, the battery capacity, and the do we actually have the technology right now needed to fully run on renewables? That's the question in terms of storage, in terms of energy,
Storage is a
distribution, and so
problem.
on. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say diversification becomes important, right? So
Absolutely, of course.
the wind is kind of always blowing, and if it not, maybe we're lucky to get some sunshine. So if we can start diversifying our strategy across different things, then I think we're quite strong. I also know that there's solar panels that are being developed or has been developed that can charge at night. So
Oh, really?
technology
Wow.
wise, yeah,
I hadn't
there it
heard of
is. It's
this.
really cool. It's quite new.
It's brilliant. Wow.
So it really is good, right? And things keeps progressing, but even if it's like 90% we get there, right? It's way better than not getting there. And maybe we should still invest in nuclear power, but I just don't think it should be our only investment. It's okay that it's ready for the future, but the problem are if we exceed.
It's maybe part of it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So it might be a conversation, but I did hear, and I can't remember which one of the many MDs it was, but there were literally a politician coming out and saying, well, we shouldn't, they're just really ugly. I was like, what kind of argument is that? It's just, yeah.
I don't think we need to say anything there.
No, let's keep it quiet. Brush over it.
Yeah, precisely, and just move on swiftly. It's interesting. I think it's a much bigger debate, but it needs to be had, and I think it's important that it's really good that it's happening now. That's obviously the role that's there to be played from government level and from energy distribution level and energy generation level. Going back sort of to businesses again, it's a bit tougher on the energy front, but are there some quick, simple things that companies can now do? Like, are there any somewhat democratized solutions out there that any company that kind of cares a bit about being a bit more green can just implement without, because maybe it's a small startup somewhere that can't really afford to work with a consultant or kind of can't do something like, is there any quick little things that they can do straight away?
Yeah, 100%. I think check who your energy supplier is and make sure that you're kind of, yeah, plugged in. And you can even do that as an individual person, like whoever is providing your electricity, right? So that makes sense. Which bank you go with really matters. What pension fund you're investing into, because that's money that will be there for a very long time. So you don't want anyone that are reinvesting your capital into fossil fuel, fast fashion, weapon industry, those kind of classic industries that are just there and they're old as dinosaurs, but they're still existing. So I think, yeah, it's that's a really fundamentally big one where it will make a difference over a long time.
That's a really interesting one, actually. And I think banks is something that also, yeah, which provider you're working with, that's not something that comes to the top of people's minds straight away. That's a very interesting point.
Yeah, yeah. I can give a shout out to Triodos Bank. They're
To who,
like
sorry?
really transparent. Triodos, I believe they're Dutch.
Trio DOS. So is that
Yeah,
TRIO?
Triodos. Yeah, TRIODOS, and they're having full transparency around where your money gets invested, and they are very explicit about not investing into those things. So, and then you can start googling the different UK banks as well, and
Yeah, of
some of them are
course,
better
of
than
course,
others, right?
of
And yeah,
course. Yeah, no, it's
and
a
the
brilliant
same
point.
goes with
Yeah.
again individually where you put in your own kind of savings.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, absolutely, of course. Um, so we've talked a bit about why you started the company. We've talked a bit about what you do, right? We've talked a little bit about general different things that kind of that affect companies, organizations, and governments in terms of the green. I want to say the green piece, but it's going to sound like the green piece. Pieces in chunk.
The green
Um,
agenda. Yeah.
the green agenda, exactly, precisely. Moving forward, then, sort of, where do you see Planet 1.5 going? What is the future like for you guys?
So our hope are to work with more and more businesses, go out and be good consultants and advisors, grow in the like amount of consultants we offer as well, give opportunities for new consultants to also get the learnings we have, because there's a lack of people that has enough knowledge, so it kind of goes both ways, right? I would love to do that. I would love to really get going with the thought leader discussion, because I think there's so much value for everyone. Maybe in 3 years we will have like an awards where we're celebrating businesses
That
that
would
are
be
doing really
amazing.
well,
Wow.
wouldn't it? Like I just really
Yeah,
want to like put focus on the people that do the good things. But yeah, grow as a consultancy, um, give awareness, give back to schools, universities, and society in different ways through learning. programs and that kind of thing. That'll be the mission.
That's really, really awesome. So the aim is to get as many people as possible thinking about this and working on this, implementing things practically
Yeah.
too, not just hearing about it.
Yeah, exactly. And we need to just not be in the boardroom talking about making things happen. We need to actually go and make it happen, right? So we need doers.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow, that's brilliant. Amazing conversation. I feel like we could talk about this stuff for ages and never get bored, to be honest with you. It's quite incredible. If people want to find out more about you, want to find out more about the company, they want to maybe get in touch and check out some more of the stuff, the amazing work that you do, what's the best way for them to do that?
The website is a really good place to start. There's a hit the inbox, obviously. I am tremendously active on LinkedIn. So
yeah, brilliant.
I'm not always seeing my LinkedIn inbox because I get quite a few requests, but just harass me and I will get back to you.
Okay.
You've got a little bit on YouTube. We're doing a series, so maybe check that out in future.
Brilliant. What's the series about? Tell us more.
It is about like how to do better as a business around sustainability, and then we're just diving into different topics, and some of it is really lighthearted, some of it is really tedious. So
of course. Of course.
Yeah,
I love it. That's great. We'll definitely check that out as well. We'll leave some links in the description too for the company's website. ESG as a general phrase. When you hear ESG, what do you think?
I think people are confused. That's just what I think. So ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. And if you take ESG, it's actually a generic term that are used within the investors' language, capital markets, and they use it to go in and evaluate corporate behavior and how they're doing on their sustainability efforts to actually see if they're worth investing in, right? So it's going back to kind of that communication upwards. I think what's interesting is when we start talking about sustainability, because what's missing in ESG, environment, social, and governance, is the economic value. And I think businesses have a big role to play here. So a good example of driving economic value is Unilever, that years back went in and said, okay, so we have this little society in India. Women are kind of a little bit stuck at home, having maybe you can't say anyone has too many kids, but they have more kids than they have in our part of the world. And they're not, the economy isn't really thriving. What can we do? Like, it's not necessarily an attractive market. So they ended up investing as a business, and obviously they have a lot of power, but see it at another scale. They ended up investing into the society and kind of educated women to be salespeople. So they got them out of the homes and they gave them education. And they got a stream of products into that kind of community. And over time, it also became profitable for Unilever to do that. So that's when you're talking about shared value projects. But I think it's building yourself up or innovating on a product or whatever you do to drive economic value, I think is just as important, because a business is a business, and I would never be the one saying, oh, you should just do it because it's good for the planet. It's not like, that's not how the world works, right? So we can't really forget about that one. And I feel like that's forgotten about in ESG, and it's not as business focused.
Very interesting. So I was going to ask you sort of one kind of final closing question, but I think you've already kind of given your piece on that. But it would have been, so we believe that not for profit is good, but good for profit is better. Hence the name of the podcast. So I was going to ask what your thoughts on that are, but I think I've already gathered what your thoughts are. So
yeah, definitely. If we had to stay on the sayings, there's a saying that there won't be any businesses in societies that fail, right? So the point being that you got to build a business and a business model that are kind of helping society thrive, and that's what you're profiting from. But you also won't have a business if it's not profiting. So it goes both ways.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a really good note to kind of end on there for listeners. So anyone out there who's looking to start a company, do something that's profit driven, but at the same time also for the goodness of the world, then you know that you've got the support of at least Jessie and myself. and
Definitely.
there are many others out there. But also
Yeah.
really encourage listeners who are thinking about going into this world, or who are already working within a company, within a field, but want to be more purpose driven, be more greener, and do better. Definitely get in touch with Jessie. She is very friendly, and I can attest. And yeah, hope that if everyone found it absolutely useful. Is there any closing remarks, Jessie, that you want to say from your side? Any final thoughts?
No, just thank you very much for having me, and I can only encourage businesses to do it right. If they're in the beginning phases, it's much easier to start doing it now than having to clear up the mess later on. So yeah, you would have my vote for
Absolutely.
doing that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for your time. And
Thanks for having
yeah,
me.
we might have you here back on at some point in the future again. Thanks, Jessie.
Be pleased. Thank you.
Absolutely. All the best. We hope that you liked the episode. This podcast was sponsored by QFind, a hiring platform that matches candidates with jobs and employers based on many factors that ensure longer term alignment. It goes way beyond package and salaries and takes into account much more than that to ensure a happy working environment for everybody. To find out more about this podcast and to see further releases, we'll be announcing them at the @qfinds.io Instagram page, as well as on the qfinds.io website, as well as from my own personal Instagram page and my own personal LinkedIn. All information you need that we spoke about in the podcast, or this information mentioned here, will be mentioned below in the description. So take a look, visit those links, and if you like anything or want to get in touch, please do. And lastly, stay tuned for more. Have an amazing week ahead of you.